if you want to move your business from what I like to call kind of a lifestyle business, which is a totally valid type of business, but if you're wanting to kind of move into this business builder, we have to embrace the boring. We have to move from I am this business because that will burn you out as you try to grow. You can't. It won't work. I promise you, it won't work. You need to find the boundaries from yourself and your business.
Taking a minute to be myself, don't need no help. We keep on rising.
Today's episode, I am really excited to have Robyn Goldenberg here. Robyn, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here with me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about what part of the world you are coming into the studio from, and a little bit about your background and your why. We really want to understand what you're trying to unlock in the community that you serve, and the value that you bring.
Yeah, of course. So my name is Robyn. I am the president of Strategy Leaders. We are a 30-year-old business consulting firm. We work specifically with small business owners, privately held business owners. We're women owned, women operated. We have a couple cool guys too that work for us as well, but majority women. And I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. I have a farm. I live in Wisconsin. So much colder than Florida. But just kind of living life. I'm also a nutritionist, and a strength athlete. So I know all about the kind of the game of where do you put your priorities? How do you balance? How do you show up where you need to show up? And without kind of draining yourself and losing yourself in the process.
Oh, that is such a huge topic, Robyn. And thank you for all of the depth of the work that I'm sure you're doing with your clients because, small business and running a small business is like a gauntlet. And I see so many people in the community around me as well burning out. And, they're looking for that fulfillment. So, how do you normally kind of identify that burnout has happened? Is people just telling you? Are they like just coming to you saying, help me revive myself? Does it start? You mentioned nutrition. Does it how does this find you? How does this work find you? And when did it find you?
Yeah. So I think where I want to start is that I own 3 businesses and it's really cool, but it also really sucks. People will hear me say that a lot, right? We've started these businesses to give us freedom and flexibility. But ultimately, sometimes the business ends up in control versus the business owner. And I see this a lot in working women, in moms, right? Business owner moms, things like that, people like that, where we give everything to everyone else. And sometimes we don't even notice that we're at our limits, right? Or that we're burning out or anything like that. And it takes someone else, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's, your best friend, maybe it's even your kids to say like, hey, you're like kind of grumpy, or like I've never seen you react like that before, or you seem to just not have a tolerance for things, or um, something that shows up, is when I go to the gym multiple times a week. I'm a strength athlete. When I contemplate if I'm going to go to the gym right in the morning, I'm really not feeling it. Maybe I won't go. My partner will say, "Hey, what's going on? Why aren't you going to the gym? I know you need to go." And so it starts to show up like that. But you just don't feel like yourself. I think it's really hard for us to identify like I'm in burnout. I've hit my max because I think as women in particular, and men too, but we tend to try to just keep doing. Like, oh, I missed that. So I'll just do more, right? And we just take on more and more and more. And what it takes is someone from the outside to say, why are we trying to do this much? No one else tries to be a superhuman all the time. Um, so what I would say is we tend to not identify that we're at burnout, but it's other people around us or our behaviors or our actions that start to identify we're at that point.
Yeah, and I can't agree more. And I think that I'm really an advocate for tuning into your nervous system, and your nervous system being like the ultimate radar of what's going on. Sometimes it's unconscious eating behaviors, unconscious sleeping behaviors. And, until we tap in and really go, what's happening in the signal in the receiver side of it, that we don't really know. And so I love what you're saying, because you're meaning that we don't have supermom written all over we're not wearing a supermom costume and, superwoman and showing up in all of the ways that we do. And I think men do that too, absolutely. And I'm really glad that you mentioned you have some men that are kind of empowering that. What kind of communication tips do you typically start with for someone to kind of just dispel that grouchiness that you talked about? Like, how do you disarm that and just go, I need to get clear and get some clarity on the stuff I got to look at in my life?
Yeah, I think the first default that I see is that we tend to just say, well, I'm fine. I'm just having a bad day. I'm fine. And I think it's important to say, and I say this, I don't want to say that I say this a lot, but I do say this, like, I'm not okay now, but I will be okay. Right. So starting to change that phrasing from I'm fine, I can do it, I got it, I can handle this, to, I'm really not okay, but I'm okay. Like, and it's not catastrophic, but I'm just not feeling it. And to be able to start vocalizing, like, I need extra support. I think this comes into play either like in your business when you have other people on your team. Maybe you have another business partner or maybe a really great executive assistant or something like that, where you can be a little bit transparent and say, I'm really just overwhelmed with the amount of stuff I have to get done. So can you help me figure out how to get it done or where I can maybe delegate some of these tasks? Um, and then when I'm not a marriage counselor, so let me just clarify. But like with your partner or your spouse or whoever, is to say like, I I'm not feeling okay. I feel burdened or overwhelmed with work and kids and home life and emotional needs, right? You have emotional needs, my partner has emotional needs, and it just becomes a lot. And so the more communicative I think you can be and open with the people around you, um, the better it's going to be, with the caveat that like I might tell my partner, hey, I'm feeling really overwhelmed by things in this house. Like maybe the laundry's just piling up. And then I came home from the office and, we've got the kids and we got to feed them and things like that. But that he is also maybe um, feeling overwhelmed. And so to not take that as, well, you don't do as much as me, so you shouldn't feel that way. And to just be open to having a conversation. Something that my partner and I do every week is we have almost like a board meeting. So we go to breakfast. We don't meet in our house. We don't meet in our office. He also owns a business. We go to breakfast and we sort of, have an agenda. Okay, we need to talk about the kids. We need to talk about our personal connection together because that's important. Our businesses, whatever it is, we kind of have like a checklist. And we use that time to be really open and honest with each other without, there's always emotion, but without blame or anything like that. And then we kind of set our goals. Okay, so this week we need to get this, this, and this done. But next month, I'd like to take a weekend just us, right? Things like that. So I think being really communicative in your relationships in general, business and personal life, can help to start to unburden that load.
Absolutely. And you know what I love that you said, Robyn, that I heard you say, let's reimagine in a different way. You didn't say these words, but I kept going back to, she's talking about reimagining emotional vulnerability. And I think emotional vulnerability means, or intimacy doesn't mean just the romantic side of intimacy. It means, how do I let you see into me what's going on? And how do I help articulate what's going on the inside of me? And it's a really beautiful way. I love that you framed it into a board meeting, because we have so many different boards that we're kind of throwing things at in our
Hmm.
life, and things stick and then things fall and slide down the wall, right? And end up on the floor and we got to pick them up, and we need help to do that. And I really, really appreciate, the advocacy for yourself, number one, and then sharing that load with other people. We have technology tools that do that, but we also need humans that do that too. And the ones that are closest to us are probably the most apt or prepared to be able to help us carry that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what does the cycle look like for a business owner when it comes time to, okay, we went through first, how do I identify it? And now I'm starting to speak about it. What's the next step in their journey with you as they really start getting clear on, I have some things I need to restructure or realign or recalibrate in my world?
Yeah. So the first thing that I like to do with my clients when they work with me is a 5-year plan. I know that that feels like, well, I don't know what
Mm.
I'm doing in 5 years. I
Right.
get that. I totally get that. Sometimes I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. So I completely understand. Um, but this is more like a bucket list. It's not like in 5 years, I'm going to be, something very specific. And it could be like, I'd like to be able to go on vacation for 2 weeks at a time, right? And disconnect from everything. Or um, I have a client right now who'd like to acquire 2 more businesses in the next 5 years, right? So some of it's personal. I'd like to, on the nutrition side, it's like I'd like to be at this strength level, or, um, you know, meal prepping and things like that, whatever it might be. So we start looking at this 5-year plan because it brings you to this place of from feeling out of control, like all this input, right? Like, oh, I've got to do all these things. I don't know how to focus or prioritize. And it's just overwhelming, which we tend to then just kind of shut down, right? We put our blinders on and we just stop thinking about that. Um, but the more we can take all that input, I'd love to do this, I'd love to do that, I'd love to do that, and put it into writing, gives it a space to live that's not in your head. And then from there, we say, okay, well, what's the priority for this year? Right. So in the next year, I only like to focus on like 3 or 5 things. 3 to 5 is kind of an obtainable amount of things, depending on the lift that it requires, obviously. And then we start to talk about, okay, we've got our 3 top goals, 5 top goals. How do we actually accomplish those? What are some of the action steps that we need to take? And then conversely, I want to talk about what kind of obstacles are we going to run into potentially as we're trying to accomplish those goals? Because if we can plan them ahead of time, then we can also plan how to handle them. And obviously, you can't always plan for everything. Things come out of the woodwork you just would never imagine. But the process of putting these obstacles and solutions like mindset into your brain is that when things do come out of the woodwork and it's a surprise, you already know how to handle it, right? Okay, Robyn said this could happen, but let's talk through how we can how we can fix this, how we can solve this, what we can learn from this, instead of just like, my God, I don't even know how to deal with this, right? You don't send your body into this like adrenaline response.
Yeah, and those are great tips because I think that having almost an inner plan so that you can respond and react to the outer influences to that plan gives you that preparation. And I went on this driver course, and I always think about this from business. Is I was on this driver course and we were driving in the mud of, on the east coast of Florida, and I'm thinking, okay, so they're teaching us to prepare in case you ever lose control of your car, and you're driving through these roads and they teach you how to like skid out and have to turn the wheel all of a sudden so that you feel the what do they call that? It's like the magnitude of the car. It's a
Hmm.
physics thing, right? So it's the sheer force of the car needing to finish a thing, a turn or a stop or whatever that force is. It's very similar to our life, though. It's like if you don't think about how you're going to turn your car, all of a sudden, if you got to take a left turn or you got to pivot your business, you're just kind of living in the moment so much that you're not looking at the road ahead of you. And is there a turn ahead and things like that. And business has been really different for a lot of small business owners. The technology and the rules and the taxes and all of the things. Are you seeing some trends and patterns in where some of that unpredictability is really coming from and creating extra burden?
So I would say that, yes, the short answer is yes, but we really saw this, and I don't love bringing up COVID again because it feels like so long ago, but
No.
we really did see this during COVID, right? As like overnight, I tell you candidly, like overnight, I lost 75% of my revenue, right? We were heavily situated in one industry, a hospitality industry, and they shut down overnight, essentially. Travel stopped, everything like that. So, um, it absolutely started at this black swan moment, right? Where, and we see this every 8 years, there's something like this. No one could have predicted COVID, obviously, but um, something happens every 8 years. Knowing that, whether that's an economic downturn or things like that, you know, we can be prepared for that. But within that time frame of COVID, where we had to adapt to working from home, to new tech, how do we put in new technologies? All these bigger corporate companies were almost scrambling, but they seemed almost ready, right? Like they have a team, they have the budget, they have the things. They could just jump into solve it, being present and ready to go. But small businesses don't have that ability, and it is largely related to being stuck in the ways we used to do things, right? We get so used to like, we've always done it this way, so we'll continue to do it this way because small business is small and antiquated or things like that, right? People like us because we're cute, right? Like that's essentially how it feels. Um, but now we're moving into this place where everyone uses AI. Everyone uses contractors. Everyone uses whatever, right? There's always something new, but it's only new for us. It's not new for these bigger companies that have people that their literal job is to look for these things coming down the road and solve them ahead of time. Um, and certainly that's not a realistic way to live your life in small business. You can't just be like, what's coming next? What's coming next? What's coming next? Because we'll lose sight of what's happening now. Um, but learning how to be adaptable and controlling your own reactions as a business owner is critical to leading yourself, leading your family, leading your team, whatever that might be, and leaning into your strengths, right? So as women, we have some inherent like feminine strengths that maybe like more masculine people might bully their way through things, that we have an ability to do things a little bit differently that I think has been looked down on a little bit, right? Like, oh, that's a soft way to do things. But sometimes when we are faced with so much continual change, your best option is to soften instead of bull in a china shop, like blinders on, go straight through, and to really develop this empathy almost, right? Of, I know things are changing and I know it's stressful. I'm stressed, right? As the business owner, I can't imagine like that my team is probably stressed too because things are changing. But it's my job as a mom, as the business owner, as the leader to have the empathy to understand that like if I'm stressed, they're stressed, but I don't need them to eat my stress, right?
Mm.
So we have to be controlled but soft.
And you're talking about something that's so important. And, we mentioned how we connected here was through Tammy Vincent, which was a previous podcast guest of mine. And we talked at Tammy's wellness event back in December about the pause, the power
Hmm.
of the pause. And the pause being, I just got to recalibrate for a second. I don't have to go, 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 do, especially if I'm the one that's really the entity or the essence, like the true, like, um, the power of who we are on the inside, we pour into a business entity. Without
Hmm.
that essence, there is no business. There is no identity behind that business. We're the ones that bring it to life. So if we're not life filled, when that business really starts cranking, then that machine is going to rust out, So we try to create this well-oiled machine. And I'm with you. I think that small business owners oftentimes get stuck in the machine part of it, and they lose that zest of who they were that they brought to the business in the beginning. And that's really what that's what differentiates us from the corporate machine. And so I love that you're actually calling that out and you advocate for that, because people do get lost. They get lost in the big forest among the big trees, and they forget the power of the little tree that they are to nourish the big trees, which are the communities that we live in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I will
absolutely.
add that small businesses, we employ most of the people in this country, right? We are the number one employer. And that means we're the number one supporter of communities, right? And we have the biggest impact on our local communities and the economy here. And it's time for us to really embrace that and say, the reason that this community exists is because we're here showing up every day. Um, and I think the other part of it is that we as business owners get really hung up on excitement, right? A lot of us have ADHD or some sort of neurodivergence, and we strive to have this feeling of dopamine, right, coming flooding our brains. And building a business can be really exciting, and especially when you're starting a new business, you get this like hit of dopamine for every win, right? You become the firefighter, essentially. You're the savior of the business. To your point, like the business is you, right? Um, but as you move, if you want to move your business from what I like to call kind of a lifestyle business, which is a totally valid type of business, but if you're wanting to kind of move into this business builder, we have to embrace the boring, right? We have to move from I am this business, because that will burn you out. As you try to grow, you can't. It won't work. I promise you it won't work. Uh, you need to find the boundaries from yourself and your business. So that doesn't mean that like your essence, as you phrase your word, right? Or your vision, your how you do business, how you talk to people, things like that goes away. It just means that you need to now train that next level of people in your company to embrace that. This is how we do things. This is how we work with clients. This is the vibe, right, that we have. How do we continue to grow that where it's not me making the vibe happen? Because I want we talked about this earlier, right? Go to the beach or not be here. And I don't want the business to just sit on my shoulders.
Right. Yeah, you want the business to thrive without you because of what you've created. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's a movement. That's where the value exchange, that is, and I'm a commerce expert. So for me, studying how money moves means I had
Mhm.
to understand why money moves and when it moves. And it's really around a buyer and a seller coming together saying, you've got something I want, and I'm willing to trade something that I have to get that thing, that service or that product. And, at the heart, that is what commerce is. But what it also means is I'm trusting the business owners that are in my community to provide me with value, whether they're a big box retailer or they're a small. Some individuals really crave that small business vibe and feel. That's certainly the kind of the essence of St. Petersburg, where I live here in Florida. It's very unique, relational type of business environment. Lots of relationship building goes on out in the community, lots of, promoting one another. So how do you encourage business owners to take advantage of those skills in their leadership and knowing what their 5-year plan looks like, and to really truly extend themselves out into the community to grow that, and to keep themselves like invigorated with business? Do you give them some unique tips and tools from your tool chest there?
Yeah. So, what I would say is, as a business owner, you are the most expensive employee in your business, right? Whether that's in salary or perks or whatever, right? Like you have a car or you get to go, whatever that might be. Um, you should be focusing your time on revenue generating activities. So to me, that's very much being part of your community, right? If you're in a community where, like here in downtown Stevens Point, everyone knows each other. So it's probably very similar, right? All the storefronts, the Main Street businesses, they all know each other. We have, I don't know, like 3 bookstores all in a row, but they're all friends. Like they all know each other. Um, and, the cafe knows the bookstore owner, and the massage lady in my building is friends with there's a crystal shop downtown, right? Like they just know each other. And so what I would say is like, spend your time meeting these people in your community and we networking essentially, but building relationships, because at the end of the day, if I own a business and I can't service you, but I want to help you, me knowing other people and being able to say, like, why don't you just call, John down the street, or I'll send an intro or things like that, is a huge value. And what I will also add here is, if you haven't read Go Giver by Bob Berg, it is an excellent book. All his books are excellent, but this one is kind of his first flagship book. And it is about exactly that. So he talks about go giver, sell more. So essentially, you are creating these relationships, you're giving in order to receive. And so I think it's critical as a business owner to look beyond kind of your own commerce needs, your own revenue needs, because all of that will come back tenfold. I used to be heavily involved. I used to live in Connecticut, used to be heavily involved in the Norwalk Chamber. I was a chamber ambassador. A lot of the businesses on Main Street weren't necessarily in my demographic, but I still went out and met with them. I still wanted them to be part of our community, because it's lonely as a business owner. And so even if I don't get something out of it, monetary, ultimately, like, what I'm doing is creating a community, which it fuels my emotional needs. And down the road, maybe someone's like, oh yeah, Robyn's great, she connected me with this guy and she knows everyone and she's the person to talk to, and you start to build this influence. And I think maybe that sometimes has a negative connotation, but in small business it is absolutely vital.
I'm so glad you mentioned this and you spent some time on community building because, one of the things that I do with my clients, of course, looking at past, present, future of money and money movement for commerce, is I talk to them about how tuned are you into the future of money? And the future of money movement is going to be very different than what we do today as we lean into, look at what's happening with cryptocurrencies and digital assets and blockchain. And it's an area where female business owners really aren't today, and trying to get and invite women to the table with me to have that conversation here in the US. Overseas, it's different. There's a lot more focus on it in the UK and in Europe and so forth. But as I've immersed in the Bitcoin kind of crypto community here locally and around kind of the US, there's a lot of women that really need to wrap their minds around it, but they just haven't stepped close enough to it. But what I love that you're talking about is the community building, because that is something that we absolutely nurture in our communities, is that community. And in the decentralized world of decentralized finance and blockchain, that comes first. And we can either continue paying all of the ads to the Googles and the Facebooks of the world, to run our ads and to be seen for that visibility, or we organically build that community that you're talking about by networking and by getting to know your neighbors and your surrounding business owners. So that activity will absolutely fuel us as we go into the decentralized world of finance and business.
I will say that I think finance, crypto, these types of things, that has long been a boys' club, right? And so it feels, as a woman, it feels like you're stepping into a place you don't belong. And that is absolutely not true. But the people that are currently in that space are going to do what they can to make you feel unwelcome. And intentionally or not, it just happens that way. Um, and if we can, as women, say, no, Like, we're here. I'm not even going to ask for permission. I just am going to exist here and start to build a community of women who are also staying present, not apologizing for being where we should be. That will start to come tenfold, and that people around us will just deal with it, or they won't, whatever. But we need to be far less concerned about outside people being uncomfortable with us existing, right? Um, I really like, I struggled with this for a long time. I, even in my personal finances, would say, like, well, that's math. That's a money thing. Like, that's not my thing. And then I had the opportunity to listen to like Tori Dunlap and read her book and some of these other people and some, business women. And, it was just really like made it tangible and it made it feel like, oh, I do actually belong here. And then funny enough, I made a really interesting connection a couple of years ago with a blockchain guy out of Malta. Through the cannabis space. And he was just so warm and inviting and like, this is, just normal. And so it's okay to show up. It's okay. I'm in a male dominated strength sport, right? It's okay to go to the gym and show up and be like, I'm here to lift weights or run on the treadmill or whatever you want to do, right? It's okay to stand and be your own human.
Yeah, there's so many dimensions of us as a human being too. So we have to explore some of those. And you never know when another business opportunity could show up because, it's aligned with your business kind of industry or vertical of where you're serving, but you might find a new product or you might find a new service that can help you expand and scale. And so I love that you encourage this open-mindedness. And I always come at it from I'm just going to be out in the community and I'm going to explore and see what I see today and talk to who, it has some time to talk with me. And I love that the podcast has really opened up that opportunity to connect with individuals like yourself. And you're right, blockchain and crypto can be very male dominated, but I tell you, the last mile to the adoption, and everybody wants adoption now because they've all spent so much time building out these platforms and these rails and this, methodology and these frameworks for, you know, bringing things on chain for immutability and transparency and the trust building. Now we need some people that really understand how to do that in the community to make things not just about the financial investment trading space, but about non-financial use cases as well. And so that's an area I love exploring with, clients about how can we take this technology? Because I'm a financial technologist myself. I've been building tech platforms for my entire corporate career. So I look at things a little bit differently. But if we can make it simple enough so that we don't scare individuals off, and make it more of a warm and inviting exploration kind of community, then I think we can get a lot of things done and solve for some of the problems that, we have in today's business world.
I think it's also important, like, if you're in a space, this is for anyone, not just women, but if you're in a space where like things are, I can't even call crypto and blockchain emerging because like Goldman Sachs is adopting it. It's here. Like it's
Here.
just part of, but if you're in a space where it's emerging to you, I spent a lot of time in the cannabis space. Now it's changed. There's a lot of women in cannabis, but it was really like a boys club back in the day. But that was an emerging market, right? Or at least the legal side. And ask questions, like talk to people, go to the trade shows, walk around, talk to the other businesses there, right? Like it's uncomfortable, but embrace the discomfort because to your point, you never know who you're going to connect with or what you could learn or the next thing that is really your interest, right? Um, if you stay in this comfort zone, it it does a disservice to you and your business and your community and your family and everything, right? So it's okay to be uncomfortable and it's okay to ask questions and try to learn things. I think a lot of times as we get older as adults, we're just like, well, this is how I've always done things. And so I don't need to learn new things. And ultimately we see this kind of in the older generations, or as people age, when they start losing that wantingness or ability to learn and go do things, is that the cognitive decline is substantial. And what you want to do is the key to staying young, I think, is what people will tell me is like always be learning, always try to explore, and stay present instead of just retreating.
And I love that you're saying that as far as staying young, because isn't that what child's play is we kind of like curious, we're playful. We can be playful even as adults, and we can explore new topics and go new places and ask questions that we didn't actually know. So so you mentioned you have a farm. I want to hear about this farm, and because that really requires some exploring in the dirt and all of the things, right? So how do you ever use some of these experiences you have at home to serve how you frame up services for your clients?
So kind of. We have we have 40 acres. So
Nice.
it's not super little, but the amount of animals we have is little. So we call it a hobby farm.
Nice.
Um, and I think part of owning farm animals and building a garden and doing all these things is like you just never really know what to expect. We have meat chickens and egg chickens. And our first time doing meat chickens, unfortunately, all the chicks, they ship them to you in the mail. And unless you go to like Tractor Supply or something, and yeah. Um, and all of our 150 chicks died at the post office. I know, it was really sad. And I had to go pick up just a crate of dead chicks. It was really traumatizing. Um, and I didn't know, obviously, till I got to like Milwaukee post office and drove a couple hours to go get these chicks that we were so excited for. And then um, so you just never know, right? Things, and we could have said, well, I'm just never going to do meat chickens again because that was traumatizing or upsetting to me or whatever. And it's the same in business, right? Things happen. And you have to decide, like, am I going to sit here and dwell on that, or am I going to just keep moving? So we ended up getting another round of chicks. The vendor was great and replaced them and stuff, and they all came alive.
Yay.
Um, and we were able to fill our freezer for our family with 150 chickens, which we then, here in Wisconsin, food stamps were cut off. They're back now, but so we actually set up a mini pantry at the YMCA. Our kids go to daycare there. We were able to fill their freezer with chickens and eggs and start kind of this community involvement where other people are bringing stuff from their pantry, and in the spring and summer we'll bring vegetables from the garden. So it was all about this, I think, same like in business, right? This community give back. Okay, we've produced enough for us. Now, how do we give back to the people around us? And for us, it's a great lesson for our kids.
Sure.
My We have a 1-year old, a 4-year old, and an 8-year old. And the 4-year old's job every day is to go check how many cartons of eggs there are in the fridge in the pantry, right? Um, and he really, like, the kids have really embraced this as a thing to do. And the little ones obviously maybe don't really understand, but the 8-year old, we were able to say, like, some families can't afford food. Some families just need a little extra help or whatever. And we were able to give them. So we were able to like teach our kids. And we do that very much in our business as well. Hey, I'm in a meeting. This is what we're doing. But the farm is really interesting. We have geese. We have 2 pigs. We have 1 sheep. Her name is Mozzarella. Uh,
Sure. Yeah.
Mozzarella.
Love it.
Um, and, I think when you own a farm and you want to add more animals or more planning, there's just planning involved, right? And so that's where we can also bring that, I think, back into business is we want to grow and expand. We're expanding our garden to like 3 times the size it was last year. That takes planning, right? And money and all these things. So we start to have these very serious conversations. Okay, what kind of fencing do we, like all these little tactical decisions that we also would do in our business.
Right. Right. No, and I think those are excellent examples. And I love to, I always love to talk to people about what is it that you're pulling around you into your, practice with your clients. Because there's examples and evidence everywhere. And we can see that and use those as, lessons or examples or teaching moments, because we should be learning or teaching every minute of every, day in some aspect to become the next best version of ourselves. So I love that. What is your, let's go back to this 5-year plan, and how do you help business owners really plan for the the unpredictable, right? So the unpredictable is where overwhelm and burnout, or I give up, I quit, I'm wave the right flag. And we've seen some of that. We even see that in podcasting, with 4 million podcasts out there, I was at Podfest in Orlando a few weeks back, and, there's only a few 100,000 that actually stay active and consistent. So it even speaks to the work that goes into, planting the seed and trying to get to a place of harvest with our business. And I'm using your farm metaphor, obviously. So how do you help them really get in preparation for that harvest? And is that harvest scary to some of them? When they really reach there, and as exhilarating as we want it to be, now it's like, oh no, now I really am the product of my own success.
Yeah, so I think the first part of that is we need micro wins. We're really bad at saying, okay, well, in 5 years, I'm going to be a millionaire or whatever it might be, right? Um, and then sticking to it, because it's really hard to not feel a win for years. And I think in small business, sometimes we don't acknowledge those little wins.
Mm.
And so we get burnt out because we're not feeling the pros of owning a business. And um, because again, it sucks sometimes. And so what I like to do is, after we decide kind of like, okay, this is where we want to be in the next 5 years with all these things, is that 1 year plan and the weekly conversations that I have with my clients is really like, what happened this week, right? What did we learn? Okay, what obstacles did we run into? Tell me like what's good and what's bad, and we'll figure it out. But it's having someone else there to recognize that, um, oh my God, you took off Friday and your whole business didn't burn down. Like, that's awesome. I love that for you. Sorry, I'm a fidgeter. Um, but um, someone else being excited for you as a business owner, I think is a huge brain feeder, right? So, even on like the fitness or nutrition side, like, I have a client that literally just sends me pictures of their food, right? They don't want to track their macros or anything like that, which I get because it's just annoying. But I can be like, that is a perfectly balanced plate. Like, you ate vegetables, like, which seems so silly, but for them, it is like this small change that no one else would be like, wow, I'm so proud that you ate broccoli, right? No one's going to tell you that because you're not 4. Um, but I will, because I know that that's hard for you. Or you delegated this task. Like, I don't, my emails are always out of control. And I really needed to hold that for whatever reason. But it is so mind numbing for me to go through my emails, and it distracts me from other stuff. So Anna, my assistant, now does my emails. And my partner was like, I'm really proud of you that you trusted to delegate your emails, right? Like, which no one would ever be like, good job, you're so awesome. Um, but we need that. And so I think to stick to your goals, you need cheerleader, but you also need someone that's going to hold you accountable. So it's not just like, you're the greatest, you're so awesome all the time, right? You need someone that's going to say, okay, well, that was great, but this was not so great, and you need to get your homework done. You need to, I use the term eat your vegetables, but it's really like for putting in the reps. You've got to do these things to get there, and you need someone that's willing and able and there and present to support you in getting that done.
Yeah, and it sounds like you've got such a great partner too, and that matters. The household, the time in your life of starting a business absolutely matters too, because sometimes it's just too overwhelming in certain areas. But you got this idea burning inside of you, and getting your life ready to start a business is just as important as running the business. Wow, Robyn. So, tell us how to get a hold of you and what kind of clients you're, really looking to invite into your community and how you serve them and all the good things about how they actually want to reach out to work with you.
Yeah, so I'm big on LinkedIn. You guys can find me on LinkedIn. I'm sure Connie will put my
The
links
show
in.
note.
Or you can head to my website, strategyleaders.com. I do, even though I just told you I don't check my emails, Anna checks my emails. I love talking to business owners, entrepreneurs, people who are even thinking about starting a business because I like the community. So even if we don't work together, I still like to have the conversations. Um, Typically, my clients are somewhere between 1 million in revenue to 10 million in revenue. What I like to say is they're kind of in the messy middle. So they've already done the lift of kind of the startup, although I do have a client right now that's in a startup. Um, and they're really looking for support and push um, to systematize and scale and build stability in their business. Um, I obviously do nutrition coaching. Not all my clients do that with me, but stuff like that, your wellness, your mental health, I take that all into account because ultimately that's really what matters. You matter more than your business. And so if you're looking to grow and scale, but not have the business rely on you, that's where I come in.
That it's so empowering too to say that you are you matter more than your business, and I think that that is a key, and we forget that. We get so even just immersed into the business itself, the engine that the business is, that I'm really glad that you brought that up as a closing point here, because it's so important. And, a lot of people say, what's your ultimate wealth? How do you define wealth? And wealth mostly, what would you say that would be, Robyn? What's the ultimate wealth for a business owner?
Your health and happiness. Um, but also keep in mind that as a business owner, your retirement plan is probably your business. So you've got to find a balance between protecting yourself and building this thing that's going to help you retire, move on, whatever you want to do in the next 5, 10 years, um, and allow you to continue to be happy and healthy and moving forward in life, even when that business is no longer yours.
Awesome. Well, I think that anybody would be absolutely lucky to work with you, especially if they're in that, that messy in the middle, looking for that structure and that push. It sounds like just the individual that you express yourself as here with us on the farm and the mom. I mean, you're nurturing a number of things. So it sounds like it would be a very, very honor to work with you. So thank you for being on the show with us.
Thank
And I
you.
wish you so much luck with your program.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening to Unlocking Commerce and Business. If this conversation resonated, here's what you can do. Subscribe for weekly conversations with survivors, innovators, and changemakers, building regenerative alternatives to extractive commerce. Share this episode with collaborators, partners, funders, and changemakers in your network. The people ready for restorative commerce need to hear these voices. Drop a comment below. Tell us what patterns you're recognizing or what solutions you're building. We read every one. Commerce is everywhere, and healing extraction patterns inside our communities creates regenerative commerce outside. Like a lighthouse, we're here, exploring and cutting through fog, pointing toward what works. Welcome to the era of restorative commerce. Until next time, explore courageously, build sovereignly. You are the source and store of value. This is Connie Davis signing off. Thank you for being here.